All right, this is exciting, isn't it?
Here we go, guys, in 5, 4, 3.
Here we go.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Thank you for good programming, and I appreciate the content and really enjoyed every moment.
It's a privilege to have you on your station and listen. It's good stuff. It's very educational.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Howdy. It is Thursday, August 20th. Remember, tomorrow starts the weekend. Not because it's a holiday, but because from now on, every weekend is 3 days. So, yes, we'll still be here on the radio talking, but we'll be doing it in a relaxed weekend kind of way. All right? Got that? All right. I told you when I was talking about the conditions on the USS Abraham Lincoln and how Pete Hegseth said that the reports of bad toilets, bad food, and bad mental health leading at least 3 sailors to self-harm, that was just not right. That's not right. That's not what's happening. Donald Trump, because he is such a caring, empathetic president, he said, well, they should just stay there. They haven't even served long enough, despite the fact that I heard today on cable news that this deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln is the longest deployment seen since the Vietnam War. And remember, this isn't the kind of deployment where, once a month or something, they can pull into a port and everybody can get shore leave. This has been 9 months of being on that aircraft carrier 24/7. And I've told you that some of the people who've texted in, and one guy who called, they were like, oh, it's not that bad. Not that bad at all. Yeah. Really? Really? So you'd like to be confined to an aircraft carrier for 9 months with some toilets that don't work and some food that up until recently was rationed? Yeah, now that some of this has come to attention, there's been reports that when they go to the cafeteria now, they can decide how much food they want on their plate, whereas before they had to just put their plate there and whatever amount that the people in charge decided they get, that's what they got. No more. So yeah, that is still in the news. And it's really sad. It really truly shouldn't be that way. And a president, rather than saying they should serve longer, implying somehow that they're weak, president should be coming out and saying, we're going to look into this, and if there's a problem, we're going to fix it. How hard is that? How hard is that? Well, apparently it's pretty hard. This president can't do it. The Secretary of Defense can't do it. Nobody can do it. Nobody, this is the sort of thing that should have never gone public. You know why it shouldn't have gone public? Because the people in charge should have fixed it while it was happening. And yes, there was a problem. The area where CENTCOM gets together all the food and all the care packages from home, that was hit with a drone attack. So the area that usually supplied the Lincoln was in itself damaged. It's too bad nobody in command seemed to be able to figure out a workaround. Isn't that too bad? Gosh, the supply area was hit by drones. So I guess we'll just what? We won't try to get food supplies and care packages to us from another method, another way. No, we'll just do without. Is that what's going on? It's still something people are talking about. It is still in the news. I don't know. Earlier this week, some guy said his, nephew was on the USS Abraham Lincoln, and I was exaggerating. It's not that bad. There are at least 200 toilets that still work. You know how many people live on an aircraft carrier 24/7? More than 5,000. Let's see. What does that figure? Is that if you have 200 working toilets, 5,000 people, isn't that roughly like 250 people per toilet? Per toilet? And I don't know about you, but at least 3-4 times a day, I use the toilet. So yeah, it's real easy to sit on your couch and sip a cold beverage, put your feet up and say, well, it's what they're going through isn't that bad. There was the USS Benford, a destroyer that lost power and drifted in the South China Sea in the middle of some really hot weather, drifted for 4 days because they had no power. Again, they had a problem with their toilets. They had a problem producing clean drinking water. And, oh, by the way, there was no air conditioning. One retired military guy in the upper levels of the military said that he was once on a ship off the coast of Puerto Rico that lost power for 4 hours. And he said the ship became unbelievably hot. He said you couldn't stand it. That was 4 hours. The Benford went for 4 days. Then it was towed in to get help. And again, I got a text from somebody in Indiana said, oh, well, the power went out here for several days and we were fine. Well, you know what? Most of us don't have toilets that are powered by electricity. Most of us don't depend on that power to have clean drinking water. I wonder, when the power goes out, most of us have to worry about the food we're going to lose in the freezer. And if you have an electric stove, you're not getting it out and cooking it either. Unless you have walked a mile in the shoes of someone serving, I don't think we can sit here and say, oh, they don't have it that bad. Oh, they really should. They just stiff upper lip it. I was a visitor on the aircraft carrier Kennedy. And two things struck me. First of all, as I said before, pictures you've seen of aircraft carriers don't really give you an idea of the size. They are like cities. They literally are like floating cities. That's how big they are. And you don't get up on the flight deck unless you have a reason to be there. Now, in the side of the ship, there was a big, it wasn't a window. It was sort of a big open area. But if you're on an aircraft carrier and you have a few hours off, it's not like you can say, you know what? I think I'm just going to go, I'm going to go up to the flight deck and get some fresh air. It doesn't work like that. I'm going to spend the next 4 hours trying to find one of those toilets that works. Maryland Governor Wes Moore was being interviewed by Jonathan Lemire. He talked about the USS Lincoln. Listen to what Governor Wes Moore had to say.
We've heard the President of the United States yesterday blast it all as fake news, claiming that everything is fine, the conditions are great, no one has any complaints, and attacking the media, when, of course, we have heard now from family members of those on board. They're the ones with these accounts of poor conditions and deep mental health challenges, including a few sailors who jumped overboard.
Well, this is the president who thinks that everything is fine because he has no context. He's never been forward deployed. He's never worn the uniform of this country. He's never had to say goodbye to a family member. He's never had to put his life in the hands of commanding officers with a hope that they were going to make the best decisions for them that can both support both the mission and the people who they're leading under. He's never had to do that. In fact, what we have seen from the President of the United States is we've now seen over 28,000 people who work for the VA have been fired. the vast majority of them military veterans themselves, that we have seen how he's now talking about these extended deployments as if this is just like a summer camp that these people are now endeavoring on. These are people who are willing to risk their life on behalf of this country. And these are family members who are willing to give their family members because they love this country so much. But the lack of not just appreciation but understanding that's coming from the commander in chief is not just deeply frustrating, it is angering amongst these families. It is angering in the veterans community, and it is angering because we're doing it because he is right now fulfilling a war that none of us understand, that none of us want, that is costing billions of dollars and is costing the price of everything to go up. And for what? And so I think there's a reason that we are seeing this outrage amongst these family members and amongst the veterans community as a whole when we're watching the commander in chief take such a silly and unappreciative approach to the fact that these men and women are willing to sacrifice on behalf of him and this country.
That was Maryland Governor Wes Moore talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is shortly going to be replaced by the USS George Washington Carrier Group. Can't come soon enough. Let's touch base about the Iran war, shall we? Same old, same old. We're not talking, but we're not shooting. Though Donald Trump has called for more sanctions. Sanctions. And by the way, remember how we were threatening the mediator, Oman, that somehow they weren't representing George? Donald Trump was saying that they were not representing his requests, about the Strait of Hormuz. They weren't passing his thoughts along. So he said that if they didn't shape up, we were going to bomb them. We are going to bomb the people who are trying to get us a peace settlement. We threatened to bomb them. So Donald Trump, it's reported this morning, he's going to put a lot more sanctions on Iran. And not only are we going to put sanctions on Iran, but we're going to get really, really, really mad at any other country that doesn't agree with or honor those sanctions. Okay? All righty. You got that? So, yeah. Donald Trump is still in a war that he has no idea how to end. So, he sort of waits to see what Iran's going to do. They don't do what he wants. And then he tries to figure out what can he do? Bomb them, stop bombing them. Sanction them, stop sanctioning them. Re-sanction them. He has a very thin playbook. So, this doesn't look like it's going to wrap up anytime soon. I mean, Iran has said they don't see any reason to come to any agreement before the midterm elections. Because why should they? They have got Donald Trump where they want him. Yeah. So there's that. There is that. And there's more and more news. I'm sorry. There is more and more news every day about Natalie Harp. She's been around for quite a while, but everybody just kind of, overlooked her? Yeah. So that is now apparently the White House focus. Is Natalie Harp, and things are coming out in dribs and drabs. The New York Times got a hold of a letter that she wrote him some time back, that the typical, you are everything to me. I would do anything for you. And I'm sure you've heard the reporting by now. She was at Bedminster a while back, and she tried to get a room there, and they wouldn't give her a room. So apparently there was some sort of maid's quarters in the locker room. So for months, that's where she slept, so she could be near him. Yeah, it's kooky crazy, isn't it? It's really kooky crazy. You remember John Ossoff made a speech? Of course you remember John Ossoff made a speech recently, and the MAGAs are going crazy over it because they're accusing Ossoff of somehow denigrating Natalie Harp. Ossoff just says, the guy doesn't want to be president. He just wants to, fly around in his plane and spend time with Natalie and golf. And he didn't say anything that isn't true or known. Yes, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? That speech that Ossoff made, I want you to hear a little bit from it because MAGAs are going to try to make the argument that somehow he crossed a line, mentioning, denigrating, deriding Natalie Harp was crossing a line, except Ossoff didn't do that. All he did was say her name. And if you have any conservative or Republican friends and they say, he was so rude. No, actually, he wasn't. And I want you to have the ammunition. So let's listen to a little bit of that Sunday speech that John Ossoff made that has sent shockwaves through MAGA. Listen to this.
They've lied nonstop about this war like they lie about everything. And they know they're lying, but they lie and they keep lying anyway because in this White House, they view persistence in deceit as a virtue. You hear me, Atlanta? And there's something uniquely despicable about lying a nation into war. Treating citizens as fools and those who serve as pawns. Aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, they've now been at sea for 240 plus days without a port call. It's a Navy record. And still they serve with excellence. And still they serve with excellence. God bless the sailors, Marines, aviators, and all aboard the United States ship Abraham Lincoln. See, they don't expect luxury. They'll endure hardship. But they deserve competent leaders who send them into combat only when necessary and with decisive clarity of purpose, not fools who lie about the purpose and progress of war. And while the sailors on the Lincoln fight his war, while he fruitlessly drains our munitions and oil reserves, the president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Yep, that's what he said. Just mentioned her name. And MAGA is losing it, just losing it over this. A lot of people texting in already about my discussion about the USS Lincoln that I've had this week and how I've told you some people are texting me and calling me and telling me that it's not that bad and, that they've gone without power. It's no big deal. And the situation on the USS Lincoln isn't as bad as families are saying it is. And here has been some of your responses via text. These sailors also know that they are suffering like this for no damn good reason. Armchair boomers who probably dodged the draft. People once again don't understand anything until it happens to them. Most of us don't live in tin cans that are hot as hell in the sun. Spoiled Americans got an armchair general. That does seem to be the case, doesn't it? How many people do you know who don't seem to be able to walk in another person's shoes? If it doesn't happen to you, and that's part of what bothers me about MAGA, because so much of it seems to be, yeah, maybe we're doing stuff that's really cruel and awful, but, they're not going to do it to the people I like. They're not going to do it to the people I care about. So that article about the guy who voted for Trump 3 times, his wife is from another country. She had applied for a green card, but it hadn't been approved. She was coming back into the country from a vacation or something, and ICE took her into custody. Because if you are in the process of applying for a green card, that does not give you legal standing. Maybe it would if you had the green card, but if you're still applying. So, yeah, there are both these, white folks. He voted for Trump 3 times because Trump, and he even said that the thing he liked most about Trump was his stance on immigration, that he was going to get rid of all the bad people. But they weren't supposed to take his wife, for crying out loud. And he's dumbfounded. And I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe, because they're both white, maybe he thought that it would only be brown people who would be kicked out of the country, but because they were white, maybe they would have some kind of protections. Was that part of his thought process, consciously or unconsciously? Oh, we're okay. It's going to happen to them, not us. Until it did. And now all of a sudden he is just dumbfounded. Going back, you have a lot of people texting in about the USS Lincoln. Joan, their sleeping quarters are teeny tiny, usually underneath, no windows, small, and I bet it's over 100 degrees easily. And maybe they even have to share a room. And if they can't sleep when it's so hot, that would make a body go insane. Sleep deprivation doesn't do a lot for your mental health. Somebody was texting in about Mike, who was the guy who said his nephew's on the USS Lincoln, and it's not as bad as anybody is saying, and, it's not really families who are complaining, et cetera, and so forth. Joan, yesterday you had an angry MAGA caller named Mike who accused you of using semantics in the sense that you were using words in a novel or dual meaning to achieve a desired political effect. Regarding the USS Lincoln. Maybe Mike could call back and explain which words, because I didn't hear that at all. Also, has Mike forgotten that Donald J. Trump ran as the No New Wars president? Yeah, Mike, you don't need to call back because you told me I should do my damn research. And I told you that I had done my damn research and that maybe it was time, Mike, for you to do your damn research. And the idea that that's all fake, that families are trying to talk about these conditions. Come on, Mike. Come on. Do you really have blinders that big on? Okay, we're going to take a break. I have callers. I have more texters. We'll get to all that right after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Want to join the conversation?
I just wanted to thank your station for consistently reporting the facts.
In a world of clickbait headlines, your station is who I trust for the real news.
Call Joan now at 773-763-9278 and join the conversation. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820.
We are taking your calls, reading your texts. It is Thursday. Monday through Thursday, we spend the first hour of the show doing that, talking about the news of the day with you. On Friday, we spend the entire first half of the show. So tomorrow we are going to talk news, take your calls, read your texts, discuss whatever it is you want to discuss from the start of the show until 3:30. 773-763-9278. Let us go to the phone lines now. Karen is on the line from Chicago. Hey, Karen, thanks for the call. Lady B said you had a really interesting story about a cruise ship you were on.
Yes, I was on a cruise ship that lost power, and there were nothing, no refrigeration, no lights, no toilets. It was about 36 hours before they got us towed in. And I have to tell you, it was like hell. So I can't even imagine what these poor, officers are going through. It must have been just horrible.
Yeah, you don't really think about what losing power means. And even in our homes, we are inconvenienced because it's dark. We might be losing food from our refrigerator. But when you're on a ship, what you said is exactly right. The toilets don't work.
Right,
and when you're trying to feed that many people and all of your refrigeration has gone, good grief. Good grief. I hope they refunded your cruise.
People were sleeping on the decks,
Oh, I bet they were.
Yeah, it was terrible. Also, I have a comment about Natalie. At first, Trump's whatever. At first thought maybe she's his full-time nurse or something.
Well,
anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but apparently for years she's been writing him letters about how he's like the only thing that matters to her. He is the center of her life. It doesn't sound like a healthy relationship. She apparently had a form of cancer that because of research was cured, and she told him that because of him she's alive. Like somehow he created that or supported that research that gave her a cure for her cancer. Because of you, I'm alive. And, I'm all about you. I worship you. I will do anything for you. It sounds very healthy, don't you think?
Yeah, it's perfect for him, actually. Yeah. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the call. Let's go to our good friend Dave from Hoffman Estates, who is on the line. Hello, Dave. I really appreciated your cartoon today.
Oh, good. I was going to ask if you got that one. I thought perfect timing on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of to pick up the ball from yesterday with when Brother Ron over in Michigan brought up about the Gerald R. Ford. I had told you this was back in March, that that's the time right after they had that fire aboard, and it was 100 beds. That the latest mishap to plague the world's largest aircraft carrier. The carrier has reportedly, it has 4,000 sailors that has reportedly suffered significant problems with its toilet system. So, Mike, if there's 200 toilets, while at sea, the U.S. media described clogged systems and long lines for the restrooms on the ship. And in the 2020 report from the U.S. Government Accounting Office said the ship's toilet system was subject to unexpected and frequent clogging.
Yeah.
I think I told you before, too, on this one, that required acid flushes on a regular basis to clear it at a cost of $400,000 each time. And the withdrawal of the USS Gerald Ford will lead the significant gap in the U.S. forces in the region, where dozens of warplanes it carried have taken part in strikes against Iran. The carrier currently reportedly set sail for Crete for repairs, and they're unsure how long the $13 billion vessel will be retained in Crete. So that's, the name of that tune. It's still out, and I was watching, I think it was Morning Joe, and they had that Stavridis was on. And he was talking about the ships, and he said, generally, he said, probably right now we just have four big, like the battleships. He said that there's usually a X amount that are in for repairs and refitment or whatever. So he said that, there isn't that many out there, going by him and that. And one more thing, so you can get to the others. As we know, in about a week and a half will be Suicide Awareness Month. And as last year, they had this, where it's a Red Star Foundation is actively growing, the growing crisis of suicide amongst military members, veterans, and first responders, and how they are working to change the narrative through peer support, more awareness and crisis response initiatives. They're looking at trying to get that banner, the Red Star banner, like we got the Blue Stars and the Gold Star.
Yeah.
And as much as I despise the man, it was Bergman that introduced it in the Congress, and it's still only referred, to the legislation, committee, the Judiciary Committee. So, and there's only like 12 co-sponsors on this one too. I don't know what's with these people, and only one from from Illinois, Mike Bost, and the bill is, if you want to put HR 7815.
You are going to be our legislative correspondent going forward. First the House bill from Mike Quigley, and he said, I know you heard that he would co-sponsor it. And so this is your new job, Dave. I don't know.
Well,
I'm officially giving it to you. I don't mean to put a lot of pressure on you, but you seem to be good at it. So let's go with it.
Well, like I say, these veteran issues, they're a little near and dear to the heart, and and Quigley, it could be just like when the former mayor of Chicago, when he was still running, when he told Dick Kay, the late great Dick Kay, "I'll be back." He never did come back. So I'll take them at their word, but we went through it before. They are politicians, after all. They'll tell you what you want to hear, just like that guy that's a buddy from Wisconsin to Hartman. He said he carried on that. You look, he never signed that thing for the World War II nurses. So he ain't not, but he just a lot of talk, that Luke. Anyway,
we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I'll pass that. If you get a chance and you talk to any of these Congress people when they come to talk, mention that one too.
All right.
I mean, that's serious stuff there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joan, for giving me the time. Let me get off.
You're very welcome. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Dave. Somebody texted in, Joan, did you see that despicable fool displaying his new helipad? Why, yes. Yes, I did. Honest to God, I'm going to say this over and over again. He would have made a great first lady. What does he care about? He cares about building things. He wants to redecorate things. That's what brings him joy. No wonder he doesn't have any interest in getting out of the Iran war. That's too hard. But a helipad, and there was, did you see he signed it? There was like some sort of plaque with the helipad, and he signed his name because, you got to have your name on everything. Everything. So that when you're gone, already know deep down inside, you're hated. So you want your name everywhere because you don't want history to erase you. And that's what a lot of people are going to want to just move on from you. Yes, he was bragging about how his new helipad is not made of concrete because, that's not really very strong. It's made, I think he said it's made of granite. What did he say? Some absurd, granite can withstand like 35,000 pounds per square inch. It's a natural material. Maybe you didn't know that. It's a natural material. So, yeah, we can't seem to get out of the Iran war. We've got military people who are not being supported the way they should be supported. Somebody texted in about Oman. What I read was that Donald Trump wanted to bomb our mediators because he wants the Strait of Hormuz to be open and he doesn't want Iran. His idea is it's got to be free. If anybody's going to have control over it, it's going to be the United States. And apparently Oman wasn't bringing that up nearly enough. So, yeah, this is a guy who wants a new helipad and he wants a new arch. And he wants to, if he can't tear down the Kennedy Center, maybe he can gut the inside of it. So that way they could put his name back on the front and it'll be the John F. Kennedy Center, renewed and remodeled by Donald J. Trump. Yeah, that's what's important to him. We are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more calls and texts right after this.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
It is our first hour when we talk about the news of the day, read your texts, take your calls. Again, getting a lot of texts about the conditions on the USS Lincoln. You are correct about the smallness of a carrier. When the air wing is on board and operating, there's nowhere to lounge. It is very confining. I was on the USS Enterprise. That's Kent from Valparaiso. Yep. It's not like there's a Lido deck with deck chairs and a bar. No. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. Ron is on the line from Chicago. Hello, Ron.
Hello, yes. Trump was giving a tour yesterday about around the White House, about showing his ballroom and his helipad and renovations inside the White House. And he said that people will have cocktails at the helipad before they go to the ballroom. And so far, he's spent about $900 million, and so probably most of it will come from taxpayers.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really puzzling to me. I guess this is where we see another deficit of the Republican Congress, because you're not supposed to be able to defy all the laws and just write an executive order that says, oh, by the way, I'm going to build a ballroom. I sign it, Donald J. Trump. I mean, the Republicans were in charge. They could have said, dude, there's a process. There's a process you have to follow. You have to have public input. You have to have your plans looked at by, the archivist. We woke up and it was like a Mayor Daley on Meigs Field. Suddenly there was construction work going on, and then we woke up one day and the East Wing was gone. This is what they mean by there's 3 branches of power, and they are supposed to provide checks so that one branch doesn't get out of hand. And we don't have that now. We don't have it from the courts, the Supreme Court at least, and we don't have it from the legislative branch. So until we can get a hold of some of that power, this is going to continue.
Did you ever see that movie, Sunset Boulevard, with the crazy old actress, Nora Desmond?
I haven't seen it from start to finish. I've just seen clips here and there. But yeah, I know that one. You thinking that's Trump?
Yeah, at the end, they get the actress out of the house by pretending they're doing a movie. So
time for my close-up. Mr. DeMille, time for my close-up.
Yes, is it going to be soon? Natalie, tell the Fox Network I'm ready for my close-up.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Ron, thank you so much for the call. Always a pleasure to chat. Our good friend Jim is on the line in Chicago. Hey, Jim, how are you today?
Hi, Joan. I was watching a climate scientist, and he was pointing out these bizarre nodules forming under our fleet in the Strait, and how much they're just horrible-looking, like creatures. He said, what will they do to the environment is just anybody's guess. And there was also a huge oil spill there that wasn't reported. It had some virgin beaches. I don't know what small country there was in the Strait, but environment is not a word that flies well with Republicans, and it certainly is not in Trump's orbit. Now, let's pivot to this wall that he's building. He's going through Big Bend in Texas. Even the mental Republicans, governor, that nutcase. Oh no, this isn't good. You're using bulldozers on virgin land, and and so on and so forth. And then in Arizona, also this crazy wall. That listen to this, Joan. You know who's building this wall and the bulldozers and all the stuff? His close contributors. He's paying $7 billion to these nutcases to rip up the environment along Arizona's coast and Big Bend, which has been there for a million years, across the Rio Grande. It's a national forest preserve. But what does Trump want to do? If they can't extract timber and minerals or anything else out of this earth, the earth is worthless to them. Because they don't believe in environment. They have no clue what the environment is.
Well, I think he just has a different way of looking at the environment. He thinks maybe the wall will bring attention to the scenery. And drilling on what has been preserved national lands, why, again, drilling, that's going to be great. We're actually going to see what's underneath the soil. He cares so much, Jim. He's like a scientist. He's like Dora the Explorer. Let's drill. Let's see what's down there, folks.
Yeah, the whole thing is just a disaster. He's a disaster. But the environment, they're not even bringing it up. And Joan, immigration is one thing. I mean, I know that, as far as I'm concerned, Miller is a social scientist. He doesn't like the word social, but he certainly thinks he can maneuver the immigrants to wherever he wants to put them. But the point is, the environment is going berserk. By the year 2050, you'll have 1.2 billion people on the move not because they want to they have to get out of where they're at because there'll be no water, there'll be no way to grow a kumquat. I mean, my point is, we're hiding our heads in the sand about this, and this. How long is he going to go on with this blockade? How long do you think he's going to starve them out? Another Cuba parent, right? He's going to starve them to death.
Well, the thing that frightens me about Cuba is he is taking such a drubbing from Iran, and he wants to look like a winner, and he wants to look strong. My fear is that he will go after a country like Cuba so that he can strut around and say, oh, look how they folded, and they gave me everything I wanted. Well, yeah, you starved them. Hello?
But an imperialistic presidency? When the hell did we ever think we'd have an imperialistic, we go back to the 15th century? I mean, they're dragging us back to a century that we've already passed up, and we've got to get along with the business. But what do you think about the midterms real quick, Joan? What do you just thumbnail sketch?
I think the thing that has struck me as most likely is what Jim Himes said, Congressman Jim Himes, that we are going to start recording the votes. It is going to look, at least in the House, like a Democratic landslide. John Ossoff, if he is going to win his Senate seat, that's what's going to send Donald Trump in front of the cameras to declare that the election was tampered with, the machines were tampered with, and that everything has to be discounted and federalized. I think Jim Himes has nailed it, and I hope the fact that we're talking about this, that we see it coming, will make us much less likely to think that there's any truth to it when it happens.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking my call, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate the call. And Carl from Kankakee, I didn't know this existed. Carl sent me an online site, news.usni.org. It's from the U.S. Naval Institute, and it is a fleet and marine tracker that periodically they update this, and you can see where at least some of our aircraft carriers are. Isn't this interesting? These are approximate positions of the U.S. Navy's deployed carrier strike groups and amphibious ready groups throughout the world as of August 17th, based on Navy and public data. Yep, George Washington, it's getting there. It's getting there. It's not there yet. Unless, well, this was the 17th, so that's had 3 days now. Because I'm hearing some reports that the George Washington has arrived. So let's hope that's true. Because those people in the USS, on the USS Abraham Lincoln, they really, really need to come home. Greg from Lake in the Hills. You know, Dave from Hoffman Estates usually sends me a good political cartoon he's seen somewhere. Greg from Lake in the Hills has sent me a picture. It is the new helipad. The White House is in the background, and there's a Marine, one of the Marine helicopters is landing. But in the center circle where the helicopter is supposed to land, there is a huge banana peel. Greg from Lake in the Hills said, here's hoping for a slippery landing. Yeah, how many memes? Oh, the memes. You know, there have been some pretty wicked AI creations about Donald Trump and Natalie Harp. If anybody thought that John Ossoff was over the line, don't send them to look at some of these memes because they are really over the top. Really over the top. Yep. Somebody texted this in. I don't really agree with it. Today's military is nowhere even close to the military that fought in World War II. God help us. I think we have the best folks in the military. I think we have the best military we've ever had. World War II, it was, well, let's face it, it was much more black and white. I mean, our very existence was threatened by both Japan and Germany. We saw what was happening in Europe as country after country fell to the Germans. But as far as training and outfitting, I think we still have a really great military. I believe that with all my heart. I've met some of them. One of a woman who was a commander of, I think it was like a resupply unit, but saw action. As a matter of fact, one of the people under her command was killed by an IED as they were driving. And talking to her, her seriousness, her dedication, the way that she put every life under her command in such care. She valued those lives so much. It was amazing and heartwarming to see and hear her talk about it. I think we still have a military that is second to none. Our situation right now is a little different than World War II. Like I said, maybe the objectives were clearer. You know, it was literally, you know, our lives on the line. But I still think we have people who care about this country. You join the military, you care about this country more than you care about your own life. I mean, that's the deal, right? One person texted in that Trump wants to keep the Iran conflict going so he can use them as the people responsible for the cyber breach. That's possible. But, you know, he's got a ton of people in the government of Venezuela who will do pretty much anything he tells them to do. So, you know, why would he? You know, he's got a lot of countries he could blame. We are going to take a break. We're going to come back with more right after the news.
Hey, Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Joan, as always, exceptional work from you from, your TV days all the way up to today. You're truly exceptional, and thanks for this great show you have.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
It is time to welcome back Greg Hines from Crane's Chicago Business. Greg, how has your summer been?
Good. Ending, unfortunately. Winter in this town comes too early, but so far so good.
There's so much going on in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. Let's just jump right in with probably, of all the things to talk about, the silliest on our list was something I talked about yesterday. No NASCAR in downtown Chicago for 2027. They just couldn't agree on the date, or at least that's what they came up with. What do you know anything more about that? Was there more to it?
I think so, Joan. The backstory is that back at the beginning of June, it looked like this thing was going to happen. They went so far as to call local public officials and sound them out on, can you attend a press conference next week to announce that NASCAR is going to come back at a different date, not the midsummer July 4th weekend that really messed up a lot of stuff, but in the late spring, right after Memorial Day, in conjunction with Sueños, the Latino Music Festival, so they could piggyback on each other to be much less disruption. It happened quicker, but all of a sudden it fell apart. And my sources tell me what fell apart is that NASCAR has been losing money on this puppy. They were looking for a $15 million state tourism grant to help them pay some of their setup costs, because it costs particularly a lot to build all that stuff out in the lakefront. But they only ended up getting $5 million. And they spent a couple of months trying to work that out and trying to hammer out some of the details about the early summer, late spring date. And they ran out of time. They have to do their schedules. So bye-bye. They said nice things about, we're going to keep our office in Chicago. We'd love to come back in 2008. But the fact of the matter is that for race car fans, and there are a lot of them, it ain't going to happen in Chicago. I'm sure some neighborhood residents are happy because they didn't have to put up with the inconvenience. But the hotel guys, the restaurant folks, they were counting on some business from this puppy, and they're not going to get it.
Yeah, that's the part you don't think about. I mean, when I first heard that Lori Lightfoot wanted NASCAR to run, remember how there were reports that the Art Institute was worried that the vibrations would damage some of the works that they have at the Art Institute, and they had to make plans to bring in these big trucks and take some of the stuff out for the race. And it was just like, oh my God, could this possibly be worth it? But you forget about the fact that if I owned a downtown hotel, man, I would want there to be an event every week.
Well, my impression, Joan, particularly in talking to some of the older people who represent the downtown area, is that like anything else, you're really worried about it before it happens. But once you've seen it, it doesn't turn out to be quite that bad, and you kind of get used to it. And that's after 3 years here. That kind of happened with NASCAR. It proved not to be quite that bad. It was getting a little better. But like I said, the politicians were not able to work it out.
Well, speaking of events and entertainments and what the costs are and what, if anything, a government should provide. See, this is a very lengthy segue into the Bears, Greg. I'm trying to do a major market segue where, you take one story and you tie it to the next story, only I'm literally having trouble doing it. So let's just go to the Bears. What the heck was that last news conference? Well, the Bears were having a news conference. Is everybody here? We want you to know we're still thinking about Indiana, but Illinois, the door's still open for you. What the heck kind of news conference is that?
Damned if I know, Joan. You'd have to ask the Bears because they haven't really explained it. At this point, it looks like either they got a deal in Indiana or they don't have a deal in Indiana. and if they don't, then Illinois will have another crack at it. There's certainly blame to go around here if the Bears go on local politicians, and I'd put Mayor Johnson right at the head of that list because it looked like there was a deal that was all set to be done, but he pulled votes off it at the last minute in Springfield, and it didn't happen. But the Bears themselves have made some enemies they didn't need to make. Governor Pritzker keeps saying, "Well, what exactly do you want? What's your plan? Where's your bill?" And this latest stunt, I think you used that word correctly. This latest stunt that. Why? I mean, either you have a deal or you don't, guys. It kind of emphasizes that if they end up going to Indiana, they're one of the reasons why.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know what you think. I don't know what you're talking to people and reporting has found, but just looking at the texts I get and the people who call in, they're just sick of the whole thing. It's like, okay, just pick someplace, just commit, just do it. And then we'll decide if you're going to be in Indiana, if we really want to drive there. We'll decide if you go to Arlington Heights, if we're going to wait till you have that entertainment complex built. But just for the love of God, make a decision. I think that's pretty much the feeling of the people who listen to this radio station.
You have a point, but there's still a large chunk of folks, including me, who would prefer that the team stay at home, stay in Illinois. Although I have to say that there's an argument to be made that if they really do go to Indiana, why they would go to India, I don't know. I mean, the backdrop is toxic waste dumps and steel mills and stinky production factories. I mean, well, you want to go there, but you guys want to go. They want to go there. There is an argument to be made that if they go there, it'd actually be better for Chicago than going to Arlington Heights because how many first-class hotels and restaurants are there in Gary and Hammond? Not very many. What it means is that everybody, the TV crews, the teams, the fans that come into town, they're going to stay downtown Chicago and drive down. It's only 15, 20-minute drive if traffic is okay. So maybe the loss isn't as bad as everybody fears, but they're gonna do what they're gonna do. This franchise has done strange things for a very long time, Joan.
Is there a date by which this has to be completed? Because I know they still have time on their lease at Soldier Field. Is there a drop-dead date?
The drop-dead date is probably financial. They spent a ton of money buying Arlington Heights. They're now paying taxes on it. There's carrying costs. All that goes to the bottom line and hurts, particularly if, as I suspect, some of the younger McCaskies, now that Virginia is gone, want to sell and cash out, which would increase the financial drain on the team. If there's a limit, that's probably it. I don't think it's the lease at Soldier Field. I'm sure the Chicago Partnership would be more than happy for the right price to extend the lease 3 or 4 years, or 15 or 20 years. So no, it's just getting it done, figuring it out.
Yeah. I'm speaking with Greg Hines, political reporter for Crain's Chicago Business. We are going to take a break, and we're going to be back with more after this.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Joining me is Crain's Chicago Business political editor Greg Hines. We were talking about the Bears, but, unless somebody calls Greg and gives him a tip that a decision has been made, we're all just, hanging around waiting for the latest non-news conference from the Bears. It'll happen when it happens. Who knows? I may not even be alive then. It's going to take so long. But, that's a discussion for another day. So much going on. I want to talk to you about the president of the school board and that election. Give us an assessment.
Well, first, a little bit of background. As most Chicagoans know, since the dawn of time, the members of the Board of Education have been appointed by the mayor, not elected. We started to elect half the board last year. Year before last. This year, we will elect the rest of the board, and then those folks will, and then at the same time, somebody will run for president of the Chicago Board of Education, first time. And that person, while they won't have a vote, they'll, like the head of any agency, they're going to kind of set the policy and have a huge say over the direction it goes. So there are 5 candidates on the ballot. I'm pleased to say that they run the gauntlet. There's a pretty good choice of experience and background, but as has been the case in Chicago politics lately, it's probably going to boil down to: do you want the CTU's candidate, the teachers' union candidate?
I was just going to ask you about that. Tomorrow I'm talking to Stacey Davis Gates, and let's talk about the CTU's candidate for this job.
The CTU's candidate is Hilario Dominguez. He ran for Alderman a few years ago, didn't make it. He's the political director on leave from the Chicago Teachers Union. And he is solidly of the belief that the problem is not that the schools are running efficiently, or not that we have too many unused schools that need to be consolidated, but that we need more money. And it ought to come from rich people in Springfield. Get off your butt and tax those rich people and spend it here, so we can have the money that we need. And if you don't, you hate black kids because they're being deprived. He's pretty clear in that. The other candidates are across the board. All of them say they would like to see more money from Springfield, but it's unrealistic to expect it now, particularly the kind of money that was included in the just passed CPS budget, which has a $150 million wish list from Springfield. That ain't going to happen, it would appear. Some of them are open to closing schools and consolidating. Some are not. It's a little early to handicap this, but I think one person worth watching who seems to be picking up some momentum is Jessica Biggs, who's on the board now. She seems to be getting a lot of support from labor unions and Chicago politicians, not the far left progressives in the CTU, but a lot of other folks. She's got some union backing. It's far too early to say that's a 2-person race, but those are the 2 that I'd be looking at right now.
Years and years ago, the state of Illinois did contribute more money to schools than it does today. So that's been something I've heard year after year after year. The state has to go back to its old formula. They used to help us out, and now that money's been taken away from us, and that's why we're in trouble. I'm not a student of the details of the finances, so I can't really say. But it does bother me when someone will say, well, in the Chicago public school system, it's something like $25,000 per pupil. But what when you break that down, some of it is pension contributions and some of it is paying interest. And it's not really that money goes directly to improving the education of one student. It seems like there's so much obfuscation around this. How much money do they have? How much money do they need? Where's the best place to spend it? Do you think that Jessica will, if she's elected, be able to straighten some of this out and make it a little bit more transparent?
Well, we're going to find out. It's her job to convince voters that she's the woman to take on the job. I mean, the truth of the matter, Joan, is that the truth here is it is oftentimes in life is somewhere in the middle. There's an argument to be made that Chicago schools, particularly with pensions, where local taxpayers pick up the pensions for Chicago schools, unlike every other district in the state. There's an argument to be made that Chicago schools have been shortchanged. Certainly, the need-based formula that was adopted a few years ago kind of set minimal levels of funding, but it also didn't implement it immediately, because implementing it immediately would have forced a whole ton of tax increases, and people right now are not in a tax raising mode. I mean, what's needed here, I think, is a board that first goes in and proves that it's done everything to reasonably control its costs. That means not just adding librarians and social workers and nurses at schools that have 24 kids. That means consolidating a little bit. I realize that's controversial in some areas, but if you consolidate, the kids are going to get a much better education. It involves cutting middle management. Once again, they lopped off a bunch of people working in the central office downtown. It seems like they do that every year, but there always seems to be more to cut. And after you've done that, then I think you go to taxpayers and say, okay, here's what we've done, folks. Now give us some more money. Mm-hmm. That's a hard line to walk. I also frankly think that the CTU folks need to put some skin in the game themselves.
How do you mean? How would they do that?
By limiting their own expenditures. I mean, the average teacher now for a 9-month job makes well over $100,000 a year. That's not bad dough. They've gotten regular 3,
How many
4,
years
5,
do you have to have in the system to make that kind of money? Because I know the beginning teachers don't make that.
The beginning teachers don't know that. All I know is that's the average. The average now is over 100,000. At a certain point, you kind of have to say, and they get what some people would say is a very generous pension that has a lot of benefits that have been increasing well over the cost of inflation. But every year, the Board of Education recently, they negotiate a deal that gives CTU much of what it wants. They know they don't have the money. They say, oh, we're going to get it from Springfield. They know that's not going to happen. So what ends up happening? Property taxes go a little higher every year now. Like clockwork. As surely as the sun rising in the morning, CPS raises your property tax if you're a Chicago homeowner as much as they legally can. The amount of money they've gotten from property taxes has just soared in recent years. So I am sympathetic with the desire to have first-class professionals and great schools everywhere and lots of money and not trying to cheapen out. I'm also sympathetic with the situation that the taxpayers have to pay the bill. They're having a problem too.
Yeah. This is related to this issue. You've studied what's going on in government and how it works for a very long time. Why is it that some people, whether they're mayors or board members, why is it that in the state of Illinois, sometimes they can just say, you know what, we're not going to make our pension contribution this year. We're going to roll it over or do something else with it. And so you get these situations where it's really hard to figure out what needs to go where because you've missed so many pension payments. How is that allowed to happen?
Because that's what the politicians involved who passed the laws want to happen. If they could have tied their hands, but doing that would irritate the unions. The unions are of the view that we'll take ours up front, and you guys worry about how to pay for it later. They're gambling that at some point the pension funds won't just go belly up. The fact of the matter is that we have been underfunding almost every kind of public sector pension in this state for a very, very, very long time. And under the Edgar ramp, some of your listeners may be familiar with that under former Governor Jim Edgar, we passed this new plan to bring the state pension plans, including the one that covers teachers outside Chicago, up to par. Under that, it was backloaded. Meaning, we'll put in a little bit more this year, a little bit more next year, but the real money won't come for 25 years.
Mm-hmm. It'll be somebody else's problem to deal with by that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the due date has finally arrived. We're now at the state level putting in, if memory serves correctly, $11 billion a year just for the state's pension funds. And they show signs of stabilizing, and their unfunded liability seems to actually be decreasing a little bit thanks to that, and thanks to the increased money, and thanks to the fact that stock market returns have been better. That's been a key issue at the city. There was a real question about whether Mayor Johnson would continue the policy first set by Rahm Emanuel and later followed by his successor, Lori Lightfoot, to not only put in the minimum required by law, which is only a fraction of what the actuaries say, but extra money, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We've been doing that now for a few years, and Johnson recently said that he's going to do it again this year, despite other city financial problems. You keep doing that long enough, and it will make a difference. But it's expensive, and it gets more expensive if the legislature doesn't quit juicing up the benefits, which they did. One of the reasons property taxes in the city are so high is because benefits for firefighters were increased legislatively, and the governor signed off on it last year. And
that was seen by a lot of people as, well, not to be too harsh, but kind of political pandering. Like, I'm going to run for re-election or maybe even higher office. The last thing I want to do is have firefighters come out and say that I screwed them over.
Well, the governor's response to that is that when the state agreed, passed legislation a few years ago to consolidate all the little police and fire pension funds all over the state into one thing. The unions didn't want to do that, so they had to be bribed, and they got bribed by offering better benefits. And that we offered the benefits to downstate firefighters, so golly gee, we had to offer it to Chicago firefighters. I'm not.
I remember that was like, if you work downstate, you get these benefits, but if you work in Chicago, you don't, and that's not fair. But we got to make that across the board, right?
That was the argument. The legislature bought it, and Governor Pritzker bought it. And all I can say is, Governor, if you really believe that, maybe you ought to spend some of your billions on that rather than asking me for the money. But he signed it.
Yeah, instead of contributing to your own campaign, just write a check that we can put in state coffers. Yeah, like that's going to happen, Mr. Hines.
Yeah,
I do want to talk to you more about.
Another part of the problem is that the Illinois Supreme Court has ruled that the day you're hired, whatever benefit you're getting, then your pension benefit cannot be reduced, even if you're there for 50 years and the government goes bankrupt. It's an obligation you're owed. I mean, it's gotten ridiculous. We're really drowning in pension costs in this state, and there hasn't been a politician yet elected who's really willing to fully tackle it and deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. Lisa Madigan tried to do something that was overturned by the courts, but that's like the last time I can remember anybody trying to really make a big change. Greg, we got to get to a break. I'm talking to Greg Hines, political editor, Crain's Chicago Business. We'll be right back after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
With me is Crain's Chicago Business political editor Gregory Hines. We have been talking about a lot of the stuff going on in the state of Illinois. And there's also been, I can't remember if this, was it J.B. Pritzker who got some transportation money from the federal government? Because I know there's Amtrak improvements that have been approved, and I don't think that I'm personally paying for that. My guess is my federal tax dollars are paying for that. And is that correct?
Kind of. The fuller story is that you wouldn't think that Donald Trump's Department of Transportation would do any favors for Chicago. They've done all kinds of things to let us know that they don't consider us to be their pals. They've held up grants. For instance, they held up the money, even though it was a contract to extend the CTA's Red Line south from 95th. But in a little bit of surprise the other day, they announced $500 million in funding for Amtrak things in the Chicago area, including money to move a big maintenance facility south from just where it's by Roosevelt Road now, across from where the new Chicago Fire soccer stadium is going up, down to Bridgeport, which would make that area available for development, including potentially a new White Sox stadium. Money to rehab several old bridges in Chicago area that are used by Amtrak and that are so dilapidated it slows down the service. And the pièce de résistance, dozens of new train sets and rehab locomotives that are going to go apparently on Midwest routes out of Chicago. It's the biggest chunk of dough that Chicago Amtrak lines have received in a very long time. And I don't know for sure why the Trump people did it. Perhaps they've just seen reason that the Midwest is important and this money will be well spent. And there's a lot of folks here that would like to take trains. There's another theory. Another theory is that they wanted to screw Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. They took away the money he was getting for high-speed rail, and that's the money that's going here instead. So I guess the question is, I guess the good news is that although Trump hates us, maybe he doesn't hate us as much as he hates California. So congratulations.
Well, I guess it's a win. We'll take it. And you said something about people liking to ride the train. I love to ride the train. And sometimes when I'm going like to see my daughter or if I want to just, go to New York or something, I look into Amtrak because I think that would be, a fun way, an easy way to get somewhere. And always it's like, oh, you want to go from Chicago to Cleveland? Well, that's fine. It'll take you 2.5 days, and it's like, are you trying to send us all to the airlines or the bus routes? It doesn't make any sense to me. Amtrak has always, I think, been an underappreciated potential gem for our country.
Yeah, little by little, the speeds and the conditions have been improving, Joan. Part of that's due to Joe Biden, who used to ride Amtrak to work. He'd commute from Delaware down to D.C. On Amtrak. All kinds of money has gone into the Amtrak line from Chicago to St. Louis. You can now take the train if it's on time, and it isn't always. But you can now take the train quicker to St. Louis than to drive. That's great. Amtrak now owns their own track rights in Michigan. That's always been a problem because most of Amtrak's trackage is owned by the freight railroads. And when it gets a choice of holding up the Amtrak train to let the freight train through in 45 minutes, guess who wins? The freight train wins. They set up new, but ridership on those lines has been going up. They set up a new line to Minneapolis-St. Paul via Madison, I believe, about a year ago that is doing really well. So there's been some incremental progress, and apparently that incremental progress has been sufficient to lead Mr. Duffy, the U.S. Transportation Secretary, to greenlight some extra money. Whatever the reason, God bless, I'm with you. You shouldn't have to drive everywhere.
Yeah.
And flying anywhere these days is an inconvenience. I mean, it takes you forever to get through security. The planes, you're like a sardine in there. And that's if the ICE people aren't there snagging these people. That makes it even worse. So, yeah, trains are nice. I agree with you.
Yeah. Greg, somebody just texted in a comment, or actually a question about the teachers and how they work. Earlier we were talking about the CTU and some of the benefits and how the Chicago schools are going to look in the near future. This person would like you to clarify some things. Teachers work 10 months a year, spend many more than 8 hours a day during those months. Most teachers have at least one master's degree, and many have more. We say we want the best for our children, but don't want to respect those teaching them. What is fair? They could go into the private sector and make more money, but have a calling to teach. And she is a little bit correct about the private sector. My kids went to New Trier High School, and not only are the salaries pretty high there, even if you're just starting out, but there's also, a few years ago, we voted for free daycare. So if you're a young teacher, who otherwise maybe couldn't afford to drive to the suburbs for a school job because you got a little kid and you have to have childcare, that's no longer an issue. However, as I'm sure you're about to point out, the property taxes reflect that. They're breathtaking at times. So we always, I know her point. We always say police are important, firefighters are important, teachers are important. But then when it looks like they're making really good salaries, we're kind of, is that really fair? And it's really kind of two sides of the sword, it seems to me, Greg.
Well, any good professional is going to tell you that they're not making half of what they should be making, and that they love the job and they're performing a public service or whatever. I'm not trying to be cynical. There's some truth to what your questioner is asking, but it doesn't grow on trees. And the fact of the matter is that if you look at the performance of Chicago public schools, it's better, but it's still not what it should be. I mean, the acid test is ask the typical Chicago employer, would you hire a CPS graduate? And unfortunately, I suspect in most cases they'd say no, that they don't think the education has been good enough. I'll let people judge for themselves. The average Chicagoan who pays the bills doesn't make $100,000 a year, but yet that's what teachers make. And it has gone up a lot. And all I'm suggesting is that, given the stress on the property tax situation now, given the shortfall in the pensions, maybe we need to take it a wee bit easier for a little bit.
Yeah. And of course, probably the people who should be paid the highest amount of money are radio hosts.
Absolutely. Next only to journalists.
Exactly. Somebody once asked me, like what the salaries were. And I say, well, I get paid in radio dollars. They are actually smaller than regular U.S. Mint dollars. They're like 2/3 of the size, and they're called radio dollars. And that's what you make when you work in radio. I don't know if there are Crane's Chicago business dollars.
But in your case, Joan, you get asked for your autograph when you go shopping at the Jewels. So
there you go.
There's ancillary pay, ancillary compensation.
There's so much more I want to talk to you. The mayor's race. Mike Quigley, of course, very publicly just jumped in. We're looking at Maria Pappas. We're looking at Alexi Giannoulis. We're, as always, looking at a couple of people that we've probably never heard of before. There's a cardiac surgeon who is in the mix. There was a businessman, Liam Stanton was one of the people in the race, but I think he has said that he's throwing his support to Alexi. The one person who hasn't officially joined the race is Brandon Johnson, but most people believe that it's just a question of when, not a question of if. What do you think?
I think that is likely, although the longer he waits, the more I wonder. You can petition passing has already started the mayor's race, and usually people people have announced by the time petition passing begins. More significantly, the mayor really has raised very little money. Rahm Emanuel, Lori Lightfoot, by this point in the past, they'd raised millions of dollars. Mr. Johnson has well under that in his war chest. More significantly, he's lost one of the two big unions that backed him. SEIU is going elsewhere this time. The teachers union presumably will be with him, but they're a little financially stressed. They spent a lot of money they really didn't have in recent years. So how much they can do financially for him is questionable. Nonetheless, I think it is likely that Mr. Johnson will run, and in a big field of 12, 15 people, which I think it looks quite likely now. There's a path for him to make a runoff. I mean, you get in a runoff, 20%. I think it will get you in for sure.
Greg, is there an advantage to him somehow by waiting? Is there some sort of tactical advantage?
Oh, I don't know, Joan. I mean, I suppose you could say if he hasn't announced, he's less of a target, but he's a target anyhow.
Yeah,
people are always criticizing this guy. I don't say much of an advantage, but it's hard for me to get inside the mayor's head. And I will say that every time I've talked to the mayor's people and say, guys, is there any question here? They say we got nothing to tell you. So we'll see. But yeah, I think he's going to get in at some point.
But why wait? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is he being coy? I don't understand that. Not when, maybe in the, like Maria Pappas. I mean, last November, Maria Pappas was like, I'm going to run for mayor. Okay, that might be a little premature to get into the race that early. But why wait? I mean, money and endorsements are being scooped up right now.
Joan, you just have to understand that Brendan Johnson is focused strictly on the job and performing well, and he's not worried about politics.
Okay. I trust your judgment on this, Mr. Hines. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I have been somewhat, not deeply, somewhat following the controversy down in Springfield about Harry Benton, who's facing a sexual harassment complaint, and how that's going, and whether he was, whether Chris Welch, the speaker, wasn't active enough soon enough. It's really turning into a quite an issue. I want to talk about that when Greg Hines, political editor for Crain's Chicago Business, and I come right back after this.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
With me is political editor for Crain's Chicago Business, Greg Hines. There has been a controversy that just seems to not be able to be squelched in Springfield. There were sexual harassment charges brought against Harry Benton, but now it seems like the person that people are most upset with is the speaker, Chris Welch, because he didn't, move fast enough, take it seriously enough, should have moved sooner, should have done more. What's your take on this, Greg?
Well, first, congratulations on the pun. Chris Welch hasn't squelched the scandal. Good for you. It's a little hard to tell. There's some ambiguity here. There's some he said, she said stuff. But there's the appearance here, and it's a strong appearance, that the speaker was slow and kind of tone deaf in how he responded to this. He knew that Mr. Benton was the target of harassment allegations months before he put hundreds of thousands of dollars into Welch's reelection campaign, Mr. Benton's reelection campaign. And the question is, what are you thinking, dude? When the aide to Mr. Benton first started complaining and finally indicated she'd like to meet with the speaker, he suggested that they meet at a bar where he'd like to hold forth. What? That looks kind of dumb.
But his excuse for that was she didn't want to go public. She didn't want to go on the record. The way it's been reported now is she wanted to tell Speaker Welch about all the stuff that was going on, and she wanted him to deal with it. She didn't want to be a part of that. Here, I'm telling you what's going on. I want you to fix it, but you know what? I'm not going to go public or file charges.
Yeah, that is what he says. To that, my response is, how'd you get your job, Mr. Speaker? You got your job because the previous guy who was there, Mike Manning, who everybody thought had the job for life, got forced out by what? A sexual harassment scandal. His caucus revolted against him. It's also, I think, pertinent that Mr. Welch himself has faced allegations of sexual harassment in the past. Nothing ever came of it, but given those two big things in his past, you would think that charges like this would set off alarm bells, smoke foghorns, and everything else in his office, and that he wouldn't have just said, well, meet me at the bar where I usually hang out. Let's, here's my chief of staff and here's my chief of counsel. Let's sit down and figure out what we can do here. And then maybe, even though you don't want to convict anybody without a trial, he would have had second, third, and fourth thoughts about putting all the money into this guy's reelection campaign.
Do you think he thought that it would just, especially because she didn't want to come forward, do you think he thought it would go away? I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who, earlier this week, who worked in Washington, D.C. for a long time, and they were like, well, sort of the rumors about Eric Swalwell were there for a really long time. I mean, it was like people knew. And it was only when he decided to run for governor that it all blew up publicly. And I'm thinking to myself, if everybody knew, why didn't anybody do something about it? And this feels like the same thing. Well, yeah, we know he's a little this or he's a little handsy or he's a little that. But you don't want to, go public with this. So we're going to just pretend everything's okay.
Two things. I've not heard anything to suggest that Mr. Benton's harassment became physical. He put hands on anybody or anything else. It was all verbal. Not to say that verbal can't be serious, but it doesn't cross that red line. Two, I think we're kind of saying the same thing. In today's political era, the let sleeping dogs lie. If it doesn't bark outrageously, we'll hold our breath and let it pass. That doesn't work anymore. And Chris Welch should have known that. So like I said, I think there was, given all that, these questions are going to persist. There's new allegations about another state rep coming out today in Capitol Facts. What kills politicians in these kind of scandals is the drip, drip, drip. It's not the first allegation. It's the repeated stuff and the stuff that is in the media for day after day after day. Well, this has been in the media now for close to a month, and it doesn't seem to be quieting down. It increasingly looks to me like Mr. Welch has a problem.
You think he will lose his seat? He will lose the speakership? How bad a problem do you think he has?
Too soon to tell. I don't think he'll lose his seat, but to what extent does his caucus stay with him and how long? Hard to tell.
But
all I know is that for Republicans who really don't have much to run on in this state, this is manna from heaven.
Yeah. But because in a lot of these situations, people just assume that it's never going to go public. I mean, if Chris Welch had said, well, Harry, we've got all this money, but you know what, Harry? We're not going to give any to you. I mean, wouldn't that have raised? Well, why not? Why is Speaker Welch not doing this? I mean, it was kind of like, in a weird way, he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't.
I suppose, but there's risks in that kind of approach. If stuff comes out later, and we now know what happens when the stuff does come out later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Like I said, what most intrigues me here is why, given his own personal history and given how he became speaker, why the speaker didn't jump on this more than he did.
Yeah, I agree with that. Greg, at our Illinois State Fair, we always have Republican Day and Democrat Day. Do you ever go down for any of those speeches to see who's doing what and saying what? Is there any real political significance to Republican Day and Democrat Day at the State Fair?
Well, it's always good to see the butter cow, Joan. But it has been a few years. It's a good opportunity to schmooze and talk to people and hear what everybody's saying. But it's been a few years since I dragged myself down to the State Fair for good or bad.
Yeah. Justin Kaufman from Axios Chicago was bragging about the fact that he ate a pork chop on a stick. And I've always said food on a stick is quite possibly the number one reason to go to a state fair, to find out exactly what food is on a stick for this particular state fair. Because, if you can do a pork chop on a stick, Greg, you can do anything on a stick.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I was trading phone calls earlier today with a lobbyist who wanted to chat with me about something, and when he finally called me back and we talked, he says, "Sorry, I was busy having a pork chop on a stick." So hey, he has his priorities right. Take care of that stomach first.
Well, last time, it's been a while, but last time I was at the Wisconsin State Fair, you had to have cream puffs. It's the dairy state. You've got to have cream puffs. They're everywhere, big trays of cream puffs. And, I certainly didn't want to stand out or insult anybody, so I ate my share of cream puffs.
There you go. I mean, state fairs are wonderful for lots of stuff. I kind of like to watch the auctions. That was always one of my favorite things to do, and maybe ride the rides. And God bless. Maybe we ought to bring back Jim Thompson so we can hear his favorite recording artist who's performed for like 45 state fairs in a row.
Well, even if it's a good occasion for local or state politicians to show up and press the flesh, I was kind of surprised that Elizabeth Warren showed up on Democrat Day, and I'm not quite sure why that was or what that was supposed to accomplish. Can you give me some insight there?
Yeah, I think the insight is that in politics, as in government, you always want to be in a position to call in a favor. I did this for you, and he'd say 6 months later, "Hey, Charlie, remember that favor I did for you? I showed up at your event. Gee, I need you to vote for my bill here." I suspect that's part of it, maybe most of it. I think the days that Elizabeth Warren is running for president are probably over, but she's still a powerful member of the United States Senate. She has legislative agendas. She has things she wants to get accomplished, and then she's in a position to talk to Tammy Duckworth or Dick Durbin and say, "Hey, I came to your fair. By the way, here's this bill. Will you vote for it?" Mm-hmm. I think that probably goes away down the road, and frankly, I'm glad it is that way. I mean, it's kind of a little old fashioned. You don't get bribed with money; you get bribed with favors. I guess.
Was she doing someone a favor by being there, or repaying a favor by being there?
I don't know. You'd have to ask her. Good question. Could be either. All I know is J.B. Pritzker has been running all over the country to talk to political events that just happen to be in places like New Hampshire. Just an odd coincidence. At the presidential level, at this stage in the level, much as it's all TV and media, whatever, there's also a big retail politics element to it. You still have to, even nowadays, press the flesh, let them see you, let them hear you. it pays dividends, and Elizabeth Warren is smart enough to know that, as is Mr. Pritzker.
Real quick, as we wrap up, once the midterms are officially over, put to bed, how many minutes will it take before the presidential race starts?
Oh, you don't think it started already?
Well, I mean, really seriously start. I think it'll be about 30 seconds to 60 seconds.
Oh, I think that may be an overestimate. Yeah, I mean, particularly if the Democrats have a good night, and indications at the moment are that the House is certainly within reach, and increasingly, I think there's an argument to be made that the Senate is in reach too. Two things will be going on: the race on the Republican side to inherit Trump's mantle, and the race on the Democratic side to end that horrible era of Donald Trump. Yeah, no question. It augurs to be a wild and woolly, no holds barred, expensive, mean and nasty presidential race on both sides. And if you think civility has disappeared from American politics in recent years, just wait.
Oh, okay. Greg Hines predicting a spicy presidential race. Greg, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure.
Indeed, Joan.
Take care of yourself. We are going to take a break for news. We'll be back with more after this.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
If you have been paying close attention to the news, you might have seen Dr. Heidi Overton has been nominated by President Trump to take over the Food and Drug Administration. She has been a part of his administration, most recently as Deputy Director of Domestic Policy, the Domestic Policy Council. She is a radical anti-abortionist. And what does that mean about being in charge of the FDA and having that stance? Well, one of the things the FDA does is decide which medications American doctors are permitted to prescribe. She's somebody that is worth paying attention to and maybe talking about who she is, what she might do, the damage she might do. To join me in that conversation is Dr. Mimi Zeman. She's an author. She was the director of family planning at Emory University Medical School. She's a retired OB-GYN, and she's a great person to talk about, especially the issue of abortion in relation to Dr. Heidi Overton. Mimi, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Joan. It's great to be here.
I don't know a lot about Dr. Overton, just a few headlines here or there. She's been part of the administration. She is radically anti-abortion. What more can you tell us?
I haven't been able to find that much more out about her either. From, aside from what you said, she has a big role at a right-leaning think tank. She appears to have gotten medical training in public preventive health. And we know that she stood by Trump with his executive order about vaccines last week, and that she's been on the record to regulate medication abortion more than it is.
I was a student at the University of Illinois, going for a public health degree. And most of the people I met who were pursuing those degrees they were all about bringing justice and fairness and helping out poorer neighborhoods and making sure everybody had, they were like warriors, they were warriors in training. And most of the medical people I know who've worked in public health and have seen the damage that laws like banning abortion can do, have seen what it is like, the struggles that especially people that don't have access to a lot of resources go through. The fact that she comes from the world of public health and doesn't understand the value that abortion brings to the table just stuns me.
I agree, especially about people who have always gone into public health and global health, and the people that always worked at CDC. I live in Atlanta, so I've known a lot of those people and worked with them. They've always been health warriors, right?
Yeah.
And it's only now that politics has infiltrated health and science that we've seen people go against science for an agenda. In this case, she has something in her background of studying at a Christian school or something. And many anti-abortion people are motivated by those kinds of, religious teachings. But yeah, since when did that infiltrate and become anti-science?
And I've always said, you know what? If that's your religion, if that's what you believe, then you know what? Don't have an abortion yourself. Here's a good idea. Follow the tenets of your religion in whatever way feels good and comfortable to you, but don't ask me to follow along the teachings of your religion if that is not a religion I happen to belong to. There's such an arrogance in this. So I think this is a good thing, so therefore everybody must do it. It's like the people who go into a library and they don't just, a school librarian, don't just say, well, I don't want my kid to read this book. Rather, it's, I don't want any child to read this book or have access to this book. That's a bridge too far for me.
Yeah, it's definitely arrogance to impose their views on the entire society.
Yeah, absolutely. And the danger, as I understand it from some of what I've read, is mifepristone. More than half of the abortions that take place don't involve a medical procedure. They involve taking medicine. And basically it brings on the equivalent of a world-class period. And that's it. It has been prescribed for decades. It has been proven over and over again to be safe. But somebody this radical, are you concerned that she will find a way to either prevent it from being sent in the mail or worst case scenario, try to prevent any doctor from prescribing it?
Yes. Well, that's definitely the agenda on the right. And mifepristone, which is the main pill in medication abortion. Medication abortion involves mifepristone and misoprostol. As you say, we've had it available in the U.S. since the year 2000. We have decades of science proving safety. And it was during COVID when the government said abortion is essential health care that they allowed mifepristone to be prescribed by telehealth and mailed. And they collected more data, and it was found to be a safe procedure, which is why the FDA changed the rules in 2023 to allow for telehealth, to allow for mailing the medication in the mail. And now it accounts for 65% of abortions. And let's realize this is the reason, and this is why the right is so against it. Since Dobbs, the number of abortions per year in the U.S. has actually increased. Okay, so abortion bans don't work. That's number one thing that people need to realize. If they don't work, let's stop harming and punishing women by imposing all these regulations on them. But the reason that the number has been able to actually go up is because of telehealth, because of the availability of mifepristone. And that's exactly why the right is now reacting to it and wanting to impose more and more restrictions again. So as you know, there have been a couple of lawsuits already trying to get the FDA to take back that 2023 provision that allowed for more access to mifepristone. And I believe that putting her in this position to lead the FDA, that's part of it, is right. It will be under her jurisdiction to do that.
And Mimi, there was a time when I would have said, well, but she's not going to act alone. She's going to need to act in concert with others to get things done. But look at the Kennedy Center. If you fire the whole board, if you fire all the people that work there, and you put your cronies and your toadies in place, well, guess what? You can pretty much say, by the way, I really would like my name on the side of the building. Okay, that's what our next meeting is going to be about. So I'm no longer concerned that she will be checked. I am concerned that no one will check her behavior if she decides to go full tilt on this. Now, I don't know how long. I don't know if this is one of those appointments where he just says it and it's done. I don't know if she has to be confirmed. I don't know if the process
She does.
is
From what
fast.
I read, she needs Senate confirmation.
Okay. Well, maybe let's like 75 days. Can we slow the process down till so that it doesn't happen till after the midterms? 75 days. Just give me 75 days, Mimi.
That would be a very good plan.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, that's what they did with the vaccine committee too, right? They just didn't listen to the original vaccine experts, replaced them, and came up with these new vaccine guidelines. So I think what you're saying is true. They can get their agendas pushed through in this way.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing people need to know is the fact we have medication abortion available is the reason we don't have what we had back in the 1960s, which is back alley abortions and women becoming sepsis, losing, organs, dying, because they don't need to do that now. They can get medication abortion and it's safe and it's effective.
For a long time, the only kind of abortion that you could get was a medical abortion. Like there were vacuum abortions, there were D&Cs and
procedural or surgical.
And it wasn't even, I remember New York was the first state to legalize it because I was a freshman in college. I lived in an all-female dorm. We had our big first meeting after we had all just moved in. And one of the TAs said, you know what? We just want you to know that if you get into a bad situation, if you get pregnant and want to terminate it, we will help you arrange transport to New York. That was like the opening, hello, welcome to the dorm conversation. Yeah. And, it wasn't an easy win getting this right. Women fought for so long. And, most of the rest of the world is now much more advanced when it comes to these kinds of things. They look at us and like, why are you guys going backwards? We don't understand. And I don't either.
True. Yeah, it's true. We've definitely gone backwards. I think to your point, women always find a way. And we will. This was an interesting thing. Ms. Magazine covered last week a new company called Abortion at Home, based in Europe, serving the U.S. with board-certified U.S. clinicians prescribing medication abortion in all 50 states. And so they purposely incorporated in Europe as a workaround. And they even supply abortion pills in advance. So I think that, women and advocates and healthcare providers will find workarounds. But, then we keep getting beaten down. Having her as FDA commissioner and maybe her rescinding these 2023 rules, it will be a beatdown.
God. It just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it? We're going to continue this discussion. I'm talking to Dr. Mimi Zeman. She was a gynecologist and an obstetrician. She's an author, and she moved to Atlanta to become the director of family planning at Emory University Medical School. We are going to continue our talk right after this.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Hey, it's Joan Esposito, and I want to talk about 120 Life. 120 Life is a drink. It's made with ingredients that help support healthy blood pressure. My mom struggled with high blood pressure for much of her adult life, and for many of us, high blood pressure runs in the family. 120 Life is a great tasting fruit and vegetable drink designed to improve your blood pressure. Put it to the test for a couple of weeks, check your blood pressure, see if it works for you. Some people reported results in as little as 2 weeks, and I have been enjoying 120 Life because I love a fruit drink that isn't overly sugary. To try it, go online to 120life.com. That's 120life.com. If your high blood pressure doesn't come down in 2 weeks, you can get a full refund. And you can get a 20% discount. Use the code JOAN, Joan, for 20% off your order. These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Zeman and I have been talking about Trump's disastrous pick to lead the Food and Drug Administration, a radical anti-abortionist by the name of Dr. Heidi Overton. Mimi, when you were director of family planning at Emory University Medical School, what stories did you see? Why are you not radically anti-abortion? How did you see that abortion fits into women's lives?
You know, the women I saw were always trying to do their best in difficult circumstances. Most of my career was taking care of people in urban areas and inner cities. These were hardworking people where they couldn't afford a baby at that time, or maybe they were trying to finish school. You know, we know from the Turnaway study that women turned away from abortion, their children are more likely to be in poverty. I mean, it's been studied and it's been proven. So most women were just trying to create better lives for their families. You know, when you look at who has abortion, it's overwhelmingly people in their 20s who have a child already. And then, of course, you have people with medical conditions where it's dangerous to their health, right? Abortion is much safer than carrying a pregnancy to term. So if it's a desired pregnancy, that's one thing. But if it's not, you're putting your body at quite a bit of risk.
And it always makes me crazy when you get this argument that, women, you can't have abortion be legal because women will just use it as a form of birth control. Sweetie, that is not what anybody wants to use as birth control, for God's sake.
Right. Nobody wants to go through an abortion. It's, you know, and if that were the argument, then you would see the administration making contraception free and available and affordable, but instead they've come after Title X, which was created actually during the Nixon administration to provide free and low-cost birth control to people of low income. And Trump came in and made a lot of cuts to that.
And, you know, no woman has a third trimester abortion because she's just changed her mind about having a baby. I mean, when you hear the stories of these women, how they were devastated, they were told there was no heartbeat, that the baby was dead, that the baby had no brain, that the baby would only survive seconds or minutes after birth, and those would be incredibly painful. I mean, this is not something that somebody says, oh, yeah, you know, I've changed my mind. Yeah, I'm 8 months pregnant, but I've changed my mind. That is just such nonsense, and it makes me crazy when people say things like that.
It makes me crazy, too. In my entire career, which was in New York, California, and Atlanta, I never saw a single case of that. It's always the heartbreaking cases, people who really desired their pregnancy, but, you know, had catastrophic conditions that led to termination. So that talking point on the right is ridiculous, and it's meant to rile people up. Oh, they just want an abortion on demand until birth.
Yeah. And, you know, let's make also something else clear. Rich people have always gotten abortions. This is you're not gonna. There's not going to be like some senator's wife who wants to have an abortion or needs to have an abortion, and she's not, even if there's a federal ban, that she's going to have access, and it is going to be a safe abortion, and she is going to be medically very well cared for. The wealthy have always found ways to do this and have it. It is the middle class and the poor folks who are left to suffer.
Yes, and they are suffering. I saw many patients here in Georgia, be told our ban is 6 weeks. So they would come in farther along and be told, they have to travel or whatever else. And it's heartbreaking. There were tears in the hallways every single day.
Yeah. And I remember back on Saturday Night Live, how many times did Cecily Strong have to bring out Goober the Clown to talk about her personal experience with abortion, and how, the fact that if she hadn't had, when she was younger, if she hadn't had an abortion, she never would have had enough of a career to end up on SNL, and how it just, it changed her life, which with a lot of young women who get into trouble, that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's allowed women, birth control and abortion have allowed women to pursue studies, have, a career, support themselves. And, many believe that's part of the right's agenda, is to keep women down, right, and more at home.
Mimi has written a play, The Post-Roe Monologues. She's also co-authored 17 editions of the medical guide, Managing Contraception. She has also written an awful lot about her life, which has been way fascinating. Her book is called Tap Dancing on Everest. I highly recommend it. Mimi, thank you so much for being here. It has been a pleasure. I'd like to bring you back just so we can spend some time talking about your book and your memoir and all the amazing things that are in it.
I love it, Joan. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. We will try to get that second interview on the schedule. I've got to tell people about this book. Anyway, we'll be reaching out. We'll be reaching out to you. We're going to take a break.
I love it.
Yeah, we'll be back with the lovely Rich Eberwein right after this.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Rich Eberwein is a reporter for Heartland Signal. That's our digital cousin. Go to heartlandsignal.com. You can also find a listen live button there. And a lot of times you get better sound if you listen on your computer than try to crank up a little AM radio. But once a week, Rich Eberwein joins us to share some of the stories that Heartland Signal has been reporting. And I have to say, it is quite possibly the highlight of my week to have Rich Eberwein on the other side of the microphone talking to me. Rich, how are you?
Stop it, Joan. Come on.
Too much? Too much?
You think? Just a little bit.
Okay. Okay. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Rich Eberwein, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I've lost it.
For the lovely introduction, Joan.
Yeah.
Making me blush over here.
Yeah. So what have you got for us today?
All right. I wanted to mainly focus on the, Iowa today. We published a article, basically kind of a state of the Iowa governor's race today. And the main focus of it was this new angle that we found of, Zach Lane. He's the Republican candidate there, and his views on term limits. So back in, I believe, April or May, he did an interview with the Des Moines Register, and they were asking him about term limits. And, essentially he said that he is in favor of term limits for, quote, most things. explicitly not the position that he's running for, though.
Yeah, well, gee, that's a shock.
Iowa governor seat.
He's interested in term limits for radio hosts and radio reporters.
Yeah, we need those. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, we have a clip of this, him saying this, if we want to play that.
We have to understand that the way our government was set up, in many ways, was not for drastic overnight change. It was for incremental change, one step at a time. One of the things I like about the governor not having term limits, and I am actually in favor of term limits for most things, I don't think they solve everything. That gets in a whole other discussion.
And then a few days later, he goes on a different podcast and does an interview on the Barn Talk podcast in May. And Lane says that, in addition to not wanting term limits for the governorship, he would be interested in serving as the governor for 20 years. And then in the same breath says he does not want to be a career politician. We have that clip.
Oh, come on.
We have that clip as well.
My whole vision is go deep in Iowa. People ask, hey, if you win this race, which I am not a presumptuous human being at all, like, if you win this race, are you going to go for something else? No, I have no interest in running for anything else. If I could be the governor of Iowa for the next 2 decades to turn the ship around, and I don't want to be a career politician, but I think that's one of the things about Iowa that we can do, is have a long-term impact. That's what I want to do.
So does that mean, Rich, that a career politician is somebody who holds an office for more than 20 years?
According to this semantics that he's doing, apparently so, which is 5 terms, by the way. That's a very, very long time. It's very convenient, obviously, like to your point, and he's making this distinct exception for the one office that he's running for, the most powerful office, arguably, in the state of Iowa, right? And he insists he's not a career politician, and instead, a lot of his campaign rhetoric is also that he's this outsider, he's a political outsider, right?
Ooh.
Which is also pretty disingenuous because he has worked as a campaign manager and a Republican staffer for 3 different Republican candidates in the early 2010s. And then he also went to work for the Koch brothers as a state director for Americans for Prosperity in Montana. That was from 2014 to 2015. So this whole idea that he's a political outsider who's coming in to shake up the establishment, it reminds me of Donald Trump, right? Like he's coming in, he's going to change everything for you. He has your best interests at heart. This background says the complete opposite. It's, I want all the power for myself. We're going to do term limits for everything, but not my position. I'm an outsider, but he's not really a political outsider. He's worked in these Republican campaigns and Republican circles for a very long time. Another thing he's faced criticism for is his private jet travel.
Okay. Yeah, private jet travel, as one does,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking my private jet this weekend to go to the grocery store. So there.
It's almost a prerequisite, Joan, to if you're a Republican running for statewide office somewhere, you need to have a private jet.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Trending in that direction, might as well.
Now, when Pete Hegseth comes to Iowa to help the Republicans campaign, do you think Pete Hegseth will get a ride on the private jet?
I bet you he will, if he's not already taking somebody else's private jet.
Yeah.
We've seen, the private jet travel thing with Zach Lane is, because he has these strong ties to Kansas as well. Like he's been facing criticism from the Democrats about how his connections to Iowa are loose in the first place. He has a $2 million home in Wichita, Kansas, which is the same place that he flies to and from dozens of times since he's been running for governor in Iowa. And he insists that it's him and his wife are visiting their children from a different marriage. Which, true as that may be, records also show that he's voted in Kansas from in 2018, 2020, and 2022 cycles.
Reminds me of Mehmet Oz when he was trying to convince people that he lived in a house that was apparently owned by his mother-in-law in Pennsylvania. And you know that like gajillion $1 million a mansion in New Jersey. Well, that's just like my, I visit that place once in a great while, but I really live with my mother-in-law all the time. You can trust me.
Yeah, forget about the properties I own all over the place elsewhere, not in the place that I'm running for office. Yeah, that was Mehmet Oz's situation, but yeah, Zach Lane, again, still a multi-million-dollar property, right? Like just similar to Oz, outside the state. And then he registered to vote in Iowa in 2024, which conveniently secured him the 2-year residency requirement to run for governor.
There was some forward thinking.
So there's a lot of this that just conveniently works out in his favor if you just ignore some of the obvious things, right? And then the outsider gimmick, he also plays up that he's a 6th-generation farmer. He tries to come off as like the everyman.
He's
right?
a man of the land.
Yeah, man of the land. Iowa farmer, ag guy. But $2 million home outside the state. He's also loaned his own campaign $2.5 million as well. So yeah, just all this stuff is just gimmicky.
Yep.
That's very.
That's my favorite thing. When you loan yourself money for your campaign, it's not like you're going to give yourself this money. You're loaning it. So that means that later when you, even if you lose, you can get your donors to chip in money and pay you back that loan. Ooh, I love that kind of accounting.
Yeah, it's very convenient. And they, when I reached out to the campaign for comment, basically, they were saying that it's all lies, that he doesn't live in Iowa. Okay. But they didn't address the term limit thing. Completely dodged all the questions on why he is in favor for term limits for everything except the Iowa governorship, and why he didn't decide to run for governor in Kansas when he has such strong ties there and apparently needs to be there on a regular basis. Conveniently.
Did he give a good answer for that?
No answer for that.
Because I think the answer most likely is I'm not running for governor in the state where I really live because it would be hard, and this looks easier to me. Mm-hmm. It looks more winnable, and I wouldn't step on any toes. So, yeah, okay.
Side note, there are term limits in Kansas.
Oh, well, baby, that's it. Because, I don't know. I guess people like this, I don't know whether they think they can fool the voters into the fact that they live there when they really don't, or they think voters won't care, because, it seems like that would kind of be a negative, that you're just showing up to run for high office in my state when you don't even care enough to really be here.
You would think. I think the thing that he wants people to focus on, I think, is I'm not your everyday politician. I'm an outsider, right? Because he can't say that I'm, typical Iowa Republican, because the Republicans in Iowa have had a trifecta for the last 10 years, and they've overseen a lot of negative consequences in the state because of that, and which is a reason why this race is so close with his Democratic opponent. Their education, the Republicans have completely prioritized funding private voucher schools, so the public education system has suffered. Cancer rates are extremely high in Iowa, partially probably because pesticides are contaminating the water supply. Again, that could be something the state could tackle through regulation, through environmental policy, right? And something that they failed to done. So he can't say, I'm going to come in and work with the legislature on all the good work that they've done, because there's a lot of work that hasn't been done, quite frankly, right? So I think he wants people to focus on this whole outsider shtick, right?
Again, I don't understand why they think they can pull this off, unless his Democratic opponent has just decided to ignore it. Because I remember, maybe it didn't come directly from Fetterman, but there were certainly members of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party who regularly called Oz a carpetbagger. and, that he's not really one of us. And that's, it's not a plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is one of, the main attack lines from Rob Sand, the Democrat running for governor there. And it seems to be working. I mean, Rob Sand is routinely leading Zach Lane in polls, won by as much as double digits. And he's also been, Cook Political Report recently just shifted this race to lean Democrat, which is insane because Democrats have underperformed like crazy in Iowa for years.
Yeah.
I think the last time they won a Senate or a governor race was around 2010. It's been a long time since statewide Democratic races have gone well, for Democrats. So this is like the first time where it's like, hey, they have a legitimate shot of flipping this, one of the most powerful seats there.
Be still my heart.
And it's not to say Rob Sand doesn't have some red flags of his own. Chief among them is that his wife's family has given his campaign over $10 million. But,
that's love.
That's yeah, for real. It's the way, elections are, right? Iowa doesn't have any campaign contribution limits, which is something that he said he would be interested in doing. I questioned that a little bit, considering, more than a third of his fundraising has come from one place. But, it is like, are you going to elect another Republican and oversee, the cancer rates continuing to spike, the public education system? That's the calculation. And it seems like Rob Sand has a lot of momentum, according to polls and fundraising numbers outside.
I think, well, of course, the schedule for the Democrats and the Republicans is a little different. But I think when things heat up in Iowa, I think we should send you out there.
Yeah, put me on assignment in Iowa.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, you won't get there by private jet. It may be a Greyhound bus, but you know what?
The deal's off.
It's just, it's your dedication to the craft. Okay, buddy?
Yeah. You know what? That's fine. That's fair. I would expect a private jet next time, though.
Okay. Private jet for next time.
Yeah. See if you can pencil that in a couple of years.
All right, Rich. Thanks so much. See you next week?
Yeah, I believe so. All right. I'll talk to you next time, Joe.
All righty. Rich Eberwein reports for Heartland Signal. Go to heartlandsignal.com. There is a ton of original, good reporting, especially on people who are in office or running for office. And it is also where you can sign up for Aaron Kleinman's newsletter, Radio Free America. It comes out once a week in your email box, and it is a cornucopia of political stories. And Aaron is always on top of things in a way that is really beneficial to those of us who don't have the time to read everything that he reads. So heartlandsignal.com, there is a lot for you there, as well as the Listen Live button. Let's not forget that. We're going to take a break. Lady B and I will be right back after this.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, are you interested in buying a home or refinancing the one you've got? Call Team Hochberg, our trusted local lender. They have nearly 800 five-star Google reviews. To satisfy her divorce decree, Sally needed to refinance their home to pay her ex-husband his share of the equity. Unfortunately, Sally didn't qualify for a mortgage on her own. She asked her mother, Myra, to co-sign. Myra called David Hochberg to understand what was involved in co-signing. David explained that if Sally made her payments on time, there was really nothing to be worried about. But if Sally missed payments, Myra's credit would be negatively impacted, and she might find it herself less able to get new credit. But after reviewing the risks and the rewards, Myra decided helping her daughter refinance her ex-husband out of her life was worth the co-signing risk. And Team Hochberg is helping Sally refinance with Myra as a co-signer. If you're considering co-signing for a mortgage, call Team Hochberg. I did. They've refinanced me a couple of times. 855-56-DAVID, or go on your computer, 56david.com. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of our listeners, but they can't help if you don't make that call. 855-563-2843, or on the web, 56david.com. I also want to let you know that next week, Tuesday, August 25th, David Hochberg is going to join me for one of the monthly hours he does with us, where he talks about the news of the day and takes your calls. There's been a lot of reporting on changes in things like buying a condo in Illinois, what the Fed does. There are lots of rumors the Fed is getting ready to hike the prime rate. We're going to ask David all about that and more, and you can call in or text me Tuesday, August 25th. He's going to be on from 3 to 4. Okay? ACM Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 643114.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
You know, political editor from Crane's Chicago Business, Greg Hines, and I were talking a little while ago, and we were talking rather fondly about the state fair, and the Illinois State Fair. Not that other states don't have them too, but we have a Republican day and a Democratic day when local luminaries show up at the state fair, and sometimes people from out of town, like Elizabeth Warren, show up. And that reminded me that I didn't have time to play this for you yesterday. Governor Pritzker was speaking at the state fair, and he used part of his speech to offer tribute to Dick Durbin, our long time Democratic senator who has announced that he is not running for re-election. Listen to what Governor Pritzker said about Dick Durbin.
There is one person here without whom our success as a party could not have happened. The child of a Lithuanian immigrant, son of East St. Louis, a career that began at a meatpacking plant that produced a man who would one day become one of the most influential leaders ever to walk the halls of the United States Senate. Senator Dick Durbin. Senator Durbin has been a true champion for the people of Illinois, from the countless children and families that he's protected through his truly lifelong fight for consumer safety, to the DACA immigrants who have long deserved a pathway to citizenship. To the smoke-free experience that we all now enjoy on commercial flights. And so much more. And as the Senate Minority Whip and the Judiciary Committee's Democratic leader, he has fought like hell to protect our civil rights and economic justice. Senator Durbin, your legacy has lifted up millions of Americans, not just Illinoisans, and your statesmanship has made us so proud to be from Illinois. On behalf of the citizens of this great state and the Democratic Party you have helped to build, we honor you for your outstanding public service.
You know, I always forget about that. Dick Durbin is the reason that we no longer have smoking on airplanes. And that, you know, I mean, if that's your legacy, that is a good legacy. Obviously, he's been around for a long time. He's done a lot more than that. But that is something that has affected so many folks. And, you know, it didn't come easy. But thank you, Senator Durbin, for the fact that we now have smoke-free airlines. A little thing that has made all of us, all of our traveling lives, a lot better. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, you know, we were talking all day about the Democrats, and We were talking with Aaron Kleinman about all the primary results from Florida. And, there was a big surprise because progressive Angie Nixon defeated moderate Alexander Vindman. And people were, again, all up in arms about what that meant. Remember, Maxwell Frost is from Florida, and he talked about the midterm prospects for Democrats in Florida. Listen to this.
Can you explain why Democrats should be paying attention to the gubernatorial race, to the Senate race, and some of these key congressional races and the extent to which Democrats have a chance in November?
Yeah, oftentimes Florida's mischaracterized as a red state. And the fact of the matter is we're not a red state. We're an under-organized state. And when you look at the results from year to year to year, just look at the ballot initiatives that happen in the state of Florida. Very progressive policies, people first policies, $15 minimum wage, things like ensuring that we have a right to vote for everybody, especially after you've served your time. These things pass with flying colors, which means that for so long, there's been a disconnect between the policy and the politics. And I believe that tonight, Florida Democrats have put forth two amazing individuals, Angie Nixon and David Jolly, to put together a superstar ticket that I think is going to inspire people across the entire state of Florida and bring people together. It's not about D versus R. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about people versus the problem. And I know they're going to speak to different people across our coalition as Democrats, but honestly, across our coalition as Floridians who care about a lot of the same things. So I'm looking forward to a decisive win in November. We need people to do everything they can to support Angie Nixon, who pulled out an amazing victory today. People have to know she was outspent by a lot of money, but this is what happens when you run a people first campaign. And you can donate to her at angienixon.com. And David Jolly, same thing, davidjolly.com. We need all the resources we can take. I know a lot of people have given up on the state of Florida, but remember, just 4 years ago, they sent the first Gen Z guy to the United States Congress. That's me. And come this November, we're going to kick Ashley Moody out from being a senator and elect Angie Nixon. And we're going to elect David Jolly to the governor's mansion.
Maxwell Frost saying, don't worry, don't be scared. It's going to be okay. This is maybe what change election looks like. Okay, that's going to do it for me today. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez is next, as always. Her guest host today is Jesse Rojo. They're going to talk to Peter Jank, candidate for Illinois House, Ellie Krug, transgender activist, Mike Bedenbaugh, Navy veteran and historic preservationist, author of Reviving Our Republic. Good show. Tomorrow, our day starts with Richard Chu. Of course, every Friday he talks to Karen Byrne from the True Blue Politics podcast. He's also going to talk to another podcaster, Amy McDonald. Her podcast is called The Foolish Optimist with Amy McDonald. And he's going to speak with Sean Casten, who is, of course, our Illinois congressman. That's how you say it, Illinois. Just ask anybody. Tomorrow, as I told Greg Hines, I am going to be speaking to Stacey Davis Gates, head of the Chicago Teachers Union. And in our final half hour, we are going to talk to Gregory Pratt and Laura Rodriguez. They're part of the Chicago Tribune team that won a Pulitzer Prize. They are also going to be part of a Chicago Tribune team that is talking about their work at LitFest in Printers Row this coming September. Okay, now you have all of the schedule. I hope you've taken notes, because first thing tomorrow at 2 o'clock, there will be a quiz. All right? Have a great evening, my friends. Good night.